Good morning, Mr. TURI FIORITO. You are the Director of European Federation of Inland Ports. Thank you for taking your time and accepting our interview because your voice is very important for us for the SEANERGY project. My name, you know me already, is Karin Vogelsam. I'm the project manager of Enshafen. And if you agree, we now start with the interview.
Yes,
First
thank you for
question.
having me.
Sorry. The first questions for you is how important do you think is transition towards clean energy sources for ports and especially for inland ports?
I think it's the most important topic that we have for the coming years, decades to do because, the entire economy wants to make this transition. And if we want to stay relevant in that area, then we have to follow that as well. We can't ignore it. And especially because inland ports are often located in cities or close to city areas, uh, the society expects us to take those roles because they can see our ports, so they want those to be places of as little emissions as possible. And I think also if we want to stay relevant within the transport markets and the logistics and industry, then we need to do this as well. Or else if you become outdated, then the world passes you by and then you don't really have a role.
Yes, you're very right. Thank you. The second question is what do you think are the most promising solutions for overcoming economical and regulatory barriers to energy transition in inland ports?
In the economical barriers, I'll start with those. The challenge, of course, is that for most of these transitions, there's no clear business model yet. Because, fossil fuels are still cheaper and they have a competitive position that is so strong that it will take a long time for things like electricity and hydrogen to pay off. So that is the first problem we have, and that's something that we have to solve. And the only way to do that is through support from national, international, and local governments because we need the extra funding to bridge the gap between the business case or the absence of a business case and eventually getting a business case. I think that is the most important thing from an economical perspective because once the whole network is there and it can compete with fossil fuels, I think then we are there, it will be okay, and then ports will be able to develop it in a much quicker fashion. When it comes to regulatory barriers, there are so many that it's a bit tricky for me to say because on the one hand, for just electricity questions, we need the entire electricity grid, not just for ports, to be updated in many member states. So that's just a huge transformation that's happening everywhere. When it comes to things like hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, any other types of cleaner energy sources, we need the regulatory permissions to be able to do the things that we want, such as spatial planning, such as the permission to be able to transport these more dangerous fuels. Let's say, for instance, hydrogen. We need to get the rules and the regulations ready to be able to transport them in a good fashion. So that is also a thing. And, it also links back to this economical barrier because regulatory uncertainty means that people are less likely to invest in these new solutions.
Yeah, thank you. And the third question is do you have any success story within your area of expertise?
Specifically on clean energy, well, I think we are starting to see the first success stories now. Like before the summer, we saw the first hydrogen inland vessel to be launched, for instance, in the Netherlands. We're also seeing more and more uptake of things such as electric battery vessels for shorter range work, such as the ZES program. At the same time, we are also able to see things developing in the sense of onshore power supply. And I know that that's not maybe the most sexy thing because it's not batteries or hydrogen, but in many places we still have to develop this and roll it out. And I think it's one of the easiest success stories that you can find when it comes to cleaner energy sources and helping with the less emissions of pollutants in the air, especially in city areas. So those three, I would say, are the major success stories in the area of clean energy.
Okay, thank you very much. This was our three questions, and if you want to tell us some additional thing, I'm open now. Otherwise, I will thank you for taking your time and giving your expertise in the Synergy project.
Yeah, I think I covered everything. I am looking a little bit, maybe this is a bit cheeky, but I'm looking at the question you were going to ask Rafael as well.
Yeah.
And I like
To
this
answer
inland.
some questions?
Well, he has there you ask him a question about mobile and static areas.
Yep. You know what we
Um,
mean with that?
I understand the meaning, and I think it's a very important topic that we don't talk about enough. Because I think it's very important that for these new energy sources for inland shipping, we have to think about mobile infrastructure as well. So, for instance, if I go back to hydrogen for refueling, it doesn't only have to be at a set point. We will also have to explore things such as local vessels that can refuel hydrogen vessels on the move. Because given the way that hydrogen works and the loading time, it might be the best solution. But what we have to remember there is that in our funding schemes, both national and European, we have this very static definition of infrastructure. And we have to be ready to make the argument that we have to change also our thinking so that we can include mobile infrastructure. So vessels that can allow for refueling, a bit like you see sometimes in military aviation or on deep sea ships. I think something similar could be done in inland navigation for these new fuels. Just wanted to add to that, seeing what you were going to ask Raphael later.
Yeah, great, great. And do you think that there can be a kind of financial barriers when it comes
Um,
to update the vessels? Do you think it
in general,
in
for updating the
general,
vessels,
yeah,
yeah, I
with
think
new
there's
fuels or new, yeah, the energy transition?
I think that's that's a bit what I was trying to say about the business case problem is there is now no business case for a ship owner to update or refit their vessel for new energy, for clean energy, because you cannot compete with your colleagues that are on fossil fuel. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And as long as we don't solve that, it's going to be very difficult for a proper business to make the change to cleaner energy sources. Just like, unless you make it attractive for somebody to buy an electric car, then they will not buy it, right? And it's no different for somebody in a business side. So I think if governments can tackle that question, okay, how do we bridge this difference? Then we will see a much faster uptake. And I know that the ship owners will be willing to change their vessels once it becomes economically viable. We often like to say, oh, it's like an old-fashioned sector that doesn't want to change their vessels. No, people want to change their vessels if it makes economic sense. But if they know that they will then lose business once they have these, then nobody's going to do it, and you cannot expect them to do so after that. So that is a bit, I think, the big, I think in the sector, the biggest challenge that we have. Once we solve that, I can see the route much clearer.
Super. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Then have a nice day, and
You
thank you
too.
for your interview. I will finalize it now.
Mhm.